Give up. My name's Quickshot. I'm joined by Spawn and Papa Smithy for the All Commonwealth cast. Today, Clutch could give the LEC representatives Fnatic a very big present if they can cause an upset and take down RNG. We're already in draft. First pick, Kiana.
Yeah, and that's absolutely what Clutch wants to be able to see. Bit of Tanner time on the world stage would certainly be very good for Clutch right now. They can only play spoiler in this group, but as we keep mentioning, still fighting for that pride as well as the ability to create these upsets.
Yeah, we always focus on playing spoiler, but picking up a single win, not going 0-6 is a storyline in and of itself. Already, we see the lock-in on the Kiana. RNG kind of able to dispose of Clutch Gaming pretty summarily in the first round. We'll see if there's any payback, because remember, we saw Fnatic, of course, respond to the Clutch game with that upset victory over SKT. Now Clutch have to back up that very long game.
And I think that RNG fans would be very happy to see this kind of tactic run against Clutch. Go with that mid-jungle 2v2, you know, something like the Akali as well as the Jarvan, going to do a lot of work to try and shut Damonte down there in the mid lane. And we've been hearing the whole time, you know, yes, Uzi is a superstar. Yes, you can play him, but you need more to be able to win a world championship.
And Karsa's Jarvan is always an interesting one, because you sometimes see Jarvan just farm it out if they don't get a level 2 gank. I feel like Karsa always has a path and a target just from champ select, whether it's of his own or the coach has put it forward. It's usually bot lane, but he can be very creative in his Jarvan pathing.
I want to see how that performs, and of course the Kayle being locked in for Clutch Gaming. We've been a little bit critical of the Kayle pick backstage. Some of the casters even using the word trap card when seeing this champion locked in. We assume that's going to be most likely top lane, as we believe Damonte will be taking that Kiana in the mix.
Yeah, that's what you would expect from what we've seen from Clutch. However, I do like Kayle in this specific comp, even if it is going to be a Kiana jungle, because I think that right now they have the ability to get in on the backline, dive very heavily onto what RNG has had. And we've seen that if you catch RNG set up, if you fight them before they're ready, their natural response is to fight back, and it can catch them unawares.
And I like that you single out the Kiana as a dive buddy for the Kayle, because she has both mobility and initiation, and not many champions can provide all of that in one big wallop. And that ult is certainly a big wallop. Ike is going to be seeing a ban here. Was banned out against Clutch Gaming earlier, and the Morgana straight up locked in here, a Ming favorite.
It certainly is, and I mean, you could see that Clutch knew something was up. They were trying to get rid of the defensive supports, the Tahm Kenches, as well as the Galio. I would be expecting Vulcan to go towards something like a Thresh or, you know, potentially a Blitzcrank to be able to try and take it to this bottom lane.
Because you think of what counters Morgana's support blind, you think of Karma, but if you see Kai'Sa Karma, that's very low in terms of kill threat and doesn't actually put up any real synergy with the killer instinct. So you'd actually kind of welcome it from the side of Clutch Gaming. So RNG kind of setting up for a self-counter pick, at least in the 2v2, to come through for Vulcan.
Yeah, but I don't think that that is the way that Clutch need to play this game. I really do think you have to be able to go at them. Rakan is another one of those engage-heavy champions. And right now, Clutch just have one of those comps that once you get 1.5 items, you just want to scrap all the time in the jungle, around objectives, and that's certainly an area that they were able to thrive during the LCS.
Well, we could have some big initiation on the side of RNG. Not an IE marksman to give that molten edge to, but still, the Orin has been recently a big calling card of the tournament, a favorite of the previous top lane of RNG and Let Me, but just going to go for the Aatrox here, and honestly, in the lane, there's quite a lot of power packed by RNG.
And I like the decision from RNG. You know what? Let's go mid-game to mid-game. Let's throw down. Let's build that momentum. The last game of the day is going to be the one that is very important for Royal, but you can never look past someone like Clutch. So I think that their composition right now is very well balanced. It's going to have a big spike on those 2 items, and that's exactly when Clutch want to fight as well.
Well, let's see what Clutch can do. For the time being, Kiana sitting in the top lane, 5 seconds left before that champion is locked in. I'm anticipating a swap, and if not, I want to ask my analyst, what do you make of this? Kayle mid, Kiana top.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a look at someone like Kiana, she's just so versatile, and I think the ability to grab grass in a long lane is actually supremely underrated. I know that a lot of teams, when Kiana first came out, were using it as a 3-way flex, and top lane was certainly a viable option.
And the second matchup we saw after the Vladimir that we saw Aatrox doing very well in was actually the Kayle matchup. It was Wonder on that one, having a real struggle streak, so trying to relieve pressure, but it's at the cost to me of Damonte's best performing champion. I think of his Kiana games, one of the big reasons that Clutch made that charmed run all the way to Worlds 2019. So there is a cost here. KO will find safety in the mid lane. The shorter lane does allow her to try to push in.
And welcome to the Rift. It's Clutch Gaming taking on Royal. Never give up. Now, it was a last-second pivot. The Ornn was hovered for a very long time, and the Aatrox has now been locked in. Spawn, what do you make of that last-second swap, and what would you like to anticipate in this matchup against Kiana?
Yeah, well, when I'm looking at RNG and how they typically played coming into this World Championship, you would not be very surprised to see that Ornn picked up just for the augmentation of the items, as you mentioned, Pape. However, this new look RNG does want to prove that they can play through their top side of the map. Longxing is a player that can play carries. People were very excited when he joined the RNG lineup, and I would expect Caster in this matchup to try and attack topside.
I feel like Longxing is kind of taking inspiration from Impact, who usually doesn't get a lot of resources, but still got a lot of value out of Aatrox, a very lane-focused pick. However, don't think he hypothesized it'd be Kiana in the top lane, because suddenly, if it's KO Rek'Sai, like, okay, Rek'Sai really strong in early skirmishes, KO not so much. The Kiana has that skirmish strength, and thus, it is still going to be difficult for Longxing to play aggressively.
Yeah, and that's what I do want to mention. You know, with the Rek'Sai, despite being double AD users, they've probably got the strongest 2v2 level 3 in the game.
Yeah.
So instead, we're going to see a bottom side invade and potentially a split map. Split map bottom side, that doesn't really suit the Aatrox at all.
Definitely a fair point on that one. But guess what? Maybe more resources for Uzi. Who knew? On that particular one, let Morgana push up and have a happy time. She needs level 2 to get the Black Shield to really have the note button against the Rakan, but the Rakan was for comp, not for lane. We already hyped up Karsa and his creative pathing. Now, at least, should know which side of the jungle he's on.
I like that. More resources for Uzi. And in unrelated news, water is wet. Something that has been a staple for the RNG side. Of course, RNG will be playing Fnatic at the end of the day, and this is a good taste test to see how well they can play against Clutch. Clutch versus Fnatic was one of the most intriguing and entertaining professional matches I have ever watched. But for Clutch, it is about making a statement game in their penultimate match. They play SKT immediately following this.
Yeah, they certainly do. And before we deep dive into what was a very interesting game of League of Legends before, I do want to point out the fact that Xiaohu was able to get control over the mid lane wave. We call it priority, that ability to push it in on your opponent. That meant it was too risky for Lyra to actually go for the red buff invade. So this is going to be a 3 buff for Karsa, as bottom lane is also pushing in there.
A lot of priority on paper here for the RNG draft. It kind of requires Lyra to be the unseen hand to affect multiple lanes. Otherwise, it's like RNG can push or necessarily freeze at will. A lot of power packed into a Rek'Sai early, but if she's spotted, and we already know that she had to deal with a damaged Raptor camp that was already taken down by Karsa, she's going to be behind in levels, so the first gank doesn't come together, and RNG might find themselves way ahead.
Yeah, keeping our eyes on what Lyra decides to do this game. Damonte takes a big chunk of damage from Xiao, who has pushed that wave forward. It's slowly bounced back, and now Damonte moving that wave out. If you look top and middle, it's pushing towards RNG's half in the map for now.
Yeah, this early game's going to suck for Lyra. I mean, he's had to go back to base already, pathing back towards topside, and you can see that Karsa was thinking about matching it and maybe going for a top lane Scuttle Crab. If Karsa is able to deny away his double golems from Lyra, it's going to be so long before a high-value camp is available for this Rek'Sai. And Rek'Sai is all about skirmishing in the river, and that's not going to be an option with how these lanes are set up.
Actually, just coming mid lane to try to help the push or potentially counter gank. The usual spot for a blue side Rek'Sai to gank is to go behind the red side bot lane and tunnel over the wall. The RNG bot lane are overextended for this, but if you notice, Scuttle Control also a ward in the Tribe Rush. Vulcan takes a lot of damage, should be fine, but these brawls should always be advantage RNG at this point.
Take a look at the CS differences already. Uzi 29 to 17 in that lane. It's been shoving and pushing, and every time we look, there's damage being applied. Longxing, though, the recipient of the first gank, and despite the struggles of Lyra early, a flawless first blood.
Yeah, and you still don't want to be on the receiving end of that Hail of Blade Rek'Sai, so a great read there from Lyra. He had one side of the map. And I also want to point out the fact that Clutch burnt 2 teleports early to start trying to fight for that priority. Yes, they are now down in CS, but they are able to play a little bit more active in the lanes due to the use of the early summoner spell.
And it just shows you that flip of sending the Kiana top side, the kill pressure that wouldn't have been there with a KO. Karsa watching on, but does see the Dark Binding go wide.
Man, I held my breath when that Dark Binding was flying out. You have to expect Karsa, level 4, the flag and drag available. Look at the mid lane.
Here.
Xiaohu has already responded. That's a little bit of an engage from Vulcan, but Karsa's able to escape with the flag and drag.
This is classic Cooney. Even as a top laner, he can roam down bot as if he's playing mid and be there for the counter ganks. Caps has been known to make those as well. Watching the top side though, root hits and it just connects so beautifully from Clutch. Just no counterplay for Langxing.
Yeah, and it looks like a little bit of a disconnect because Langxing's wave is pushing off the turret, and we already saw Karsa make the hesitation on the back. He knew he had to be topside, but he got a little bit greedy for a couple of extra camps. So I think that is a really nice capitalization from Clutch Gaming on what was an overstay, to say the least, on the top side.
Definitely the case. The Aatrox has to play respectfully. It won't have the same quarter impact and Licorice did earlier in the tournament. Only himself showing off his Kiana mechanics. Down in CS, but like we saw, he did relieve a turret dive from the side of RNG.
Early Moby boots picked up for Huni as well, so reducing the impact of that early roam. Langxing landing a number of Qs, even over the wall, in fact. Just trying to poke Huni out as best he can. And the first back, by the way, for Cody-san, he's picked himself up the Cull on that Kai'Sa. Another very big trade in the top lane as Langxing trying to put as much damage down as he can.
And I do want to try and theory craft this Moby Boots purchase, because generally when you see it in the mid lane, it's a push and roam style. Now, where do you have to go from top lane? Not very far. However, maybe he thinks it's a negative matchup where he's going to have to trade his health for CS and wants to be able to get back to that lane, hold on to the teleport for the impactful dragon fights that we normally see out of Clutch.
We saw there was that rebuff to Aatrox when it comes to interacting with minions, so no guarantee here there'll be the same windows that you find in the mid lane. Kind of reminds me of a top lane Ignite Pantheon or something in solo queue, but trying to make his presence felt early. We already mentioned that RNG have comped much more for early mid game than usual, so I don't mind the idea of the mobility as the trading continues.
It does indeed. Vulcan takes a lot of damage. Dark Binding anticipating either a flash or a dash, and Vulcan holds on to it for now.
And watch that trade pattern. Uzi doesn't go in with the E until he knows that Ming is right behind him there with the Dark Shield. However, now Lyra potentially looking for something bottom lane, but well scouted.
Absolutely the case. Caster's waiting in the wings.
Not moving.
Both junglers
Not detected
spotting
until
each
now.
other out now. The Rek'Sai passive did not reveal the position, and Ming again just millimeters away from that Dark Binding connecting.
And you can see what bottom lane pressure means, because that is a level 6 red buff Rek'Sai, one of the most fearsome junglers in the game. But because Vulcan and Cody are stuck under this turret, it was always going to be a 2v1 or a 3v1 here for RNG.
Yeah, that's the thing, because she could not spot Karsa without moving. Still looking for kills as an underleveled Jarvan does really show the temperature of this lane. Also the items, you already mentioned earlier, quick shot, about the early purchase, the Cull. Tyr and Sheen is obviously a huge laning advantage here, so Cody-san kind of at the whim of Uzi and Ming.
Yeah, that's 2 turret plates already, a 20 CS advantage, combat stats advantage as well. Uzi had already fired the True Shot Barrage, so Cody-san a little lucky to get away with his life there. And now a setup in the mid lane. Xiaohu's got Flash available to him, as does the ultimate, and Diamante will need that Divine Judgment to buy some time.
You can see Xiao, who knows exactly what's going on there. He's just playing with it a little bit. However, Vulcan now looking at this mid lane as well. And I want to point out that Uzi in game number 1 also had a terrific Ezreal game. At 17 minutes, he had completed Trinity Force, Boots 2, as well as upgraded Manamune, which at that stage of the game is so ridiculously strong, but wasn't able to convert that advantage into any real meaningful team fight. We'll see whether this game is different.
What we are seeing RNG do as a team, though, is convert lane pressure and the fact that Lyra had to pick up the minion wave in mid when Diamante backed, just running straight at the Drake, picking up a very nice early uncontested Cloud Drake, playing around the pressure they drafted for. So far, so good for RNG.
I mean, it's terrifying to think that Clutch got first blood and the gold that comes with it. They have Klepto on their mid laner, and they are still behind 600-700 gold plus the Drake. Just compliments of some of that laning pressure.
However, I would say with Kayle as well as the Kai'Sa, you are probably looking at a very good scaling advantage for Clutch, and they're not playing a hard-to-execute comp. It's just everyone get in there, throw people into the wall, and see if you can make a fight happen.
Amusingly, the gold lead's actually a little bit misleading because
Yeah.
600 of it is between the supports, and that's just because Vulcan hasn't been able to walk up and poke. Speaking of Vulcan,
Oh, the quickness comes in. There's Cody-san dashing in. Uzi's the target. He's taken out. Traded 1-for-1, but the kill credit secured by the bot laner of Clutch. While that's going on, Huni finds a stun onto Langxing. That's a supreme display of talent against the wall. Lyra joins the fray and sinks down the prey.
big kills coming through on both sides of the rift. Ming picking up the kill credit for both the kills so far on bot side. But CG do use that duo power, and they're not done.
No, they're not. Hail of Blades is doing so much work. The Void Rush comes in. Huni manages to help secure the kill. Lyra gets the unburrow, and Xiaohu manages to step into the Shroud for now. 4 kills to 2 in favor of Clutch.
What a terrific passage of play. That's an outright 2v2 on the bottom lane that Clutch are able to get the first kill. Sure, 2 will go over, but as you mentioned, Papa, onto Ming, the support already was so far ahead in the gold. But Morgana is not the best at converting these items. As we take another look at it, this is Uzi going in aggressively again, but this time not working.
Actually really well done from Vulcan, who's just been taking in the bot lane, unable to really contribute anything, not even generate gold. Let's watch if he goes down here. We did not see this off screen. Last auto attack, the fadeaway kill, and 3 kills now, I believe, onto Ming. But we knew this comp from Clutch Gaming wasn't about lanes. It's about getting out of lanes and having great synergy and setup to dive in, whether it's Kiana or Rek'Sai, and for Kayle to throw down that ultimate and help it out. Karsa hasn't been able to translate lane pressure into finished turrets or Rift Heralds. He's actually not been able to get done as much as we might have expected in here. He just misjudges the situation against Clutch's trio.
And it also looked like just a lack of understanding, as hold the thought, because bottom lane turret might go down.
It will indeed. 11.5 minutes on the clock. While we were in the replay, that picture-in-picture came up. Clutch Gaming secured the Rift Herald as well. So while they have conceded turret first blood, you can see that in the inventory of Lyra, who has had a fantastic performance in the early stages of the game, already got Warrior Enchant complete, and can look to set up a play with the Heralds.
However, that Herald shouldn't mean as much, because right now you should be able to. Hold the thought.
Trade damage coming in. Langxing throws down the World Ender. Not going to be able to land any skill shots just yet. DeMonte sidesteps everything.
Yeah, still has to burn the flash, however, as he retreats to the turret. And what I was going to mention is right now, you should just be able to pick up the Ezreal, pick up the Morgana, put the mid lane. They're going to guarantee you shove. And that means that using this Rift Herald is going to have to be off the back end of a successful fight, or potentially to gain you some priority over the dragon.
We're about to hit the part of the game is mid lane. Xiaohu's going to take a lot of damage.
He does indeed. Forced to use that perfect execution defensively. He manages to make it up for now.
And any sort of little advantage you can get as Ezreal is about to come in mid lane, work his way towards Trinity Force, and also his Muramana. That's a big advantage for RNG to wield. But now at least, Clutch Gaming just returning to the bot side here. The mid-game Ezreal is almost upon us.
Yeah, absolutely the case. 1,000 gold up in favor of RNG right now. But if you look at the top lane difference, Moby Boots and the Duskblade of Drakthar already completed. That early support, thanks to Moby Boots from Huni, is helping the individuals, but they're losing their outer turrets. 12.5 minutes and another plate has gone down mids.
However, because they did burn the ultimate away from the Akali, she has to play much more respectfully on this bottom side of the map. They went nice and early, so there isn't the ability to rotate just yet, and Clutch starting to fight back into this game.
Yeah, they're attacking the single member here of Xiaohu. Does not have the ability to walk up and wave. There's so many plates being cashed up, but it feels like the gold pinatas everywhere are getting tapped out.
Definitely the case. Huni's doing what he can to clear the minion wave. It's not going to be enough right now. Tower's not yet fallen in the bottom lane, and RNG are on a race against time. 30 seconds before turret plating will drop. Turrets are evened out at 1-1, but another plate falls top. Vulcan and Lyra sitting on a potential engage, but look, they're spotted out by that ward just to the right-hand side of the bush.
Yeah, and maybe some patience shown from RNG, something that we're not necessarily used to seeing. Instead of trying to fight and ward off that Rift Herald drop, they are just happy to trade the gold. They feel like they come online slightly earlier and therefore want to accelerate to that pace in the game.
They also want to get a back timing out of Uzi soon to pick up Trinity Force and really wield his full power. But now at least they control bot side river, so we'll be an uncontested second. Cloud Drake here for some rotational play for RNG. The next shop is where things really kick into high gear for RNG, and Clutch will need to outnumber or outmaneuver to get an advantage.
And a big part of that is going to be the Dustblade pickup here for Huni, because he's going to have the ability to not only have a sweeper, but as well as that Dustblade passive to sweep out his way to these flanks. It's going to have to be creative team fight setup from Clutch, because as you mentioned, you need the superior numbers.
And your read on this, honestly, the Moby boots into double, triple lethality is he's roaming. You know, he's not looking to win the 1v1 against Aatrox any longer. So getting pockets of vision where they have control wards down or they know they can make plays, or as you mentioned, sweeping out with the Dustblade is so critical here, because if all those plays are averted, it's going to be RNG picking up more farm than Clutch.
Well, we're hitting 15 minutes on the clock, and Clutch have shown their decision-making and compositional strategy has netted them some benefits. 2-0-1 on Huni, 1-0-2 on Lyra. Now we move into this mid-game phase, and I think back to the first time RNG played SKT, and it was movement around the map that SKT was able to utilize to defeat RNG. Now let's see if Clutch can repeat the same. As there's pressure on the top lane, and Lyra decides to move forward, at least threatening an engage onto Uzi.
Yeah, a lot of threat going down. Well, that's all to speak of there. As another level into the ultimate means another upgrade for the side of Kayle. Gotta say, Clutch, even at 0-4, being very plucky, showing a lot of tenacity. Definitely still want to impact the scoreboard as much as possible.
And this is the fact that their side laner has the ability to push past a tier 1 because it was taken down and then move into that mid lane play. You can't say the same right now about Xiaohu, because he's pushing into the Kayle, who is just a brick wall, hoovering up all of that additional CS. And now, it's a bad move.
It absolutely is. I mean, this just exceptionally well played. Lyra and Huni have had Lungxing's number this entire game.
Yeah, I mean, that's just lack of respect again. I mean, we spoke about it before, but they are pushing and moving towards their strong side of the map. This is what Vision creates for you. Disjointed numbers, and again, Longxing falls down.
And the cool thing about having this perma side lane Qiyana, because started top lane and now rotating around the map, is that compared to the normal Qiyana, you expect it from Damonte, Tanner time, roaming top and bot, is that there's multiple access routes to the mid lane that can be warded or spot you out. Given how this is being set up, a sweep comes through from the Duskblade, Lyra comes over a wall, and every single time, that will lead to a kill.
And the problem is, right now, is you can see that they're doing multiple steps to be able to get bottom lane to mid controlled before going for that play. RNG, on the other hand, they were just chipping for mid lane turret. Longxing needed to know that was the ultimate objective and be willing to sacrifice a little bit of CS for it. He wasn't, and therefore he dies.
Let's see how this pays out for the next few minutes, because Huni on the Qiyana is in an exceptional position. Damonte on this Kayle is still waiting to check his wristwatch and go, what time is it, fellas? Because at 0-0-0 on Kayle, he's had 20 minutes of relatively safe farming time to scale up on this pick that needs some time and some levels.
Yeah, but with the Qiyana, with the Kai'Sa, as well as the Kayle, you know your mid-game team fighting and late-game insurance is going to be there. So I feel like they are so happy with the fact that they're only down 200 gold.
What I want to see RNG do that they're not doing at the moment is play towards the Kayle's lack of ability to walk up. With this build, she really is trying to sustain off waves. She can't take extended trades against Akali or even the Aatrox necessarily. That could turn into Baron control if you're outnumbering. But actually, Clutch is the one that groups with their Kayle, and grouping with their Kayle unlocks the utility that's online as early as level 6.
And it just seems right now that RNG are one step behind Clutch. They're playing for the big objectives on the map, mid lane turret into Dragons. However, they aren't being fluid. They aren't rotating their pressure around. Instead, they're just very static in their setup. I feel like that's giving windows for Clutch to take advantage.
But what I want people at home to appreciate is it's not a lead that's reflected in the gold, right? At this point, there's hundreds of gold, not thousands of gold between the two teams, and RNG definitely can get the vice grip on this game with something like a Baron, and the fact that their side lanes are in a great spot. We are appreciating how Clutch is finding more of a foothold in this game than we could ever have anticipated previously. However, there's still plenty of work to be done on both sides.
So let's project forward the next few minutes. Next Drake will be another Cloud. Baron is coming up in a minute and a half, and if you look down the itemization, 2 items almost for everybody on the side of Clutch Gaming to 1.5 for most members of RNG, with the exception of Uzi. So what do you want to see Clutch do, who feel like they have the tools to utilize?
Given the fact that it's another Air Drake, I want them to play away from Uzi, because whilst we say it's 2 items, he pretty much has 3. That's an Ardent Sensor going to be picked up first for the Morgana. So as long as Uzi isn't in the play, I feel like it's a big team fight win right now for Clutch Gaming. At the same time, if you're Uzi, you need to be able to take this mid lane push somewhere else and pressure other parts of the map.
And Clutch Gaming need to appreciate they can't come to RNG through Fog of War and try to get them. They need RNG to come to them, because you start diving onto an Ezreal with Black Shield, it's going to be a bad time. And Akali can also force out a suboptimal Kayle ultimate, and you don't get the same initiation and picks from their aggressive skirmishes they got before. So plays like this, where they send a multiple outnumber, they get turret damage on, and RNG can either come to them or cede an objective.
And this is just their understanding of what they need to do to be able to win the game. Every second the game goes longer, the more you're winning if you're Clutch. The fact that they're also getting, free waves now onto the Kayle, that she's at 200 CS at 20 minutes in, farming at the clock, is a big victory right now in what should have been a counter pick matchup and a disastrous early game for Lyra.
And what I've really appreciated about Clutch and TL of the three North American squads, they really know what they are and they aren't. C9 definitely seemed confused about their meta read, but Clutch, whether it was through their qualification for this tournament or largely their group stage performance, they know where their bread is buttered. They're trying to make it work, and so far here, their game plan hasn't looked a distinct second to RNG's.
Absolutely not the case, and we get to evaluate both teams' mid games as we move forward. Now, Huni's going to step forward. He's already got a lot of damage going golden there. That's a lot of trouble for RNG. But the first victim is going to be Vulcan. Carson manages to escape somehow. Cody-san uses the ultimate to dive towards the back line. But here comes Langxing. Xiaohu dives forward as well. And Demonte's ultimate will buy just enough time for Cody-san to flash. But the true shot barrage sends him packing.
And we see what happens when you fight in the same lane as Uzi, not able to blow up Kasa. Very good use of that stopwatch. And now RNG will look to siege down mid.
Sometimes that stopwatch is worth thousands of gold, and it feels like that fight would have absolutely tumbled through if their frontline Jarvan had been taken down. Now, suddenly, a lot of map control is ceded to RNG, and of course, the kill.
And an interesting call here, Puppa, because it looked like they wanted to collapse back towards Baron. However, it looks like top lane turret is going to ultimately be the objective. RNG is sick of Clutch being able to play in their forest and instead want to start to knock down these outer structures and make the map small.
Let's look over the replay here, and it's Clutch making the sort of plays around Huni they have earlier, but Lyra's not connected to this one, doesn't have the Q down to be able to ult, so they just don't have enough burst damage by, honestly, a couple of hundred, and then suddenly RNG can play front to back. And even with a great flash, True Shot Barrage does the work.
And that is not the Kayle ult you're looking for. You want it on the aggression, not on the defense. I feel like,
Speaking of aggression,
Sun is in some trouble. Gets pulled backwards thanks to the Umbral Chains. Kasa and Langxing pick up a kill. One thing to note, double teleports used by RNG to the single of Clutch, but losing another member means there's more time for RNG to pressure lane.
and this game state is actually worse than maybe the scoreboard represents, because they've actually lost control around top side for the first time in a long time. Remember, they were the ones to get the outer top lane turret first. They were the ones to have Huni and other members sweeping through, and that meant they always had Baron access to potentially start it or potentially turn around a team fight. That's where specifically the Qiyana ultimate always comes up trumps, but suddenly it's darkness from the perspective of Clutch Gaming.
and honestly, this is what staggered deaths do in pro play. The inability to be able to get a good setup, go back to base, pick up your control wards, and be able to go back into another skirmish. Because a couple of lost fights, it looks like Clutch are now going to be on that back foot and haven't been able to get back into that topside jungle.
Bad news, Mr. Uzi has definitely visited the armory a couple of times here. 2,000 gold ahead of anyone else on the Rift. We saw him stack up the turret plates early. He's looking fearsome.
He's flamerized him at 22 minutes into the game.
Unbelievable. 283 to 189 right now. Now, admittedly, on the other side of the coin, you've got Huni and Demonte with marginal leads over their respective counterparts. If by some miracle the Kayle Qiyana can catch Ezreal, it'll go well. And this is a good example of what you can do to Castle when he doesn't have a stopwatch to read. Lyra will get the defensive ultimate from Kayle. He's escaped with his life for now. Flashes to safety. True Shot Barrage will not find a snipe. And RNG are chasing and hunting, but no Langxing, no teleport means no more.
So a good trade there. They're able to pick up the one kill, and because it's onto Casa, they're able to once again ensure that no objectives are going to be picked up by RNG, despite trading out negatively in some of those HP bars. But I feel like this is getting very dicey. The longer this game goes, the harder that play is to execute.
But there's probably no need to pray for at least another 10 minutes to get a pick, because that's exactly what this comp does so well. Whatever version is together. They have so much pick pressure as ulti on Huni already draws a flash. Suddenly, a bit of pressure relieved on the bot side of the map.
And I feel like that means that Huni is not going to get multi-man ultimates anytime soon. Will still be able to pick up the singles in that pick, as Kiana is want to do, but without that big flash is going to be tough. This is Caster just going on a solo mission, not yet with mid lane priority, has no right to walk that far into the river, and rightly gets punished for it.
But then they can turn on to Lyra so easily here, actually end up stacking the Stacies here between the Divine Intervention and also the stopwatch. Lyra gets out. It's a 1 for 0, but not one that really resets the map outside of a bit more vision around Baron for Clutch.
1,500 gold in the lead for RNG. The fourth and next uncontested Drake will be secured here. Ocean, simply no pressure from Clutch. If you look at the minimap, their priority is in the top lane. They're trying to regain some Baron vision.
And that's kind of the scaling component of their comp now, right? All of these Drakes, 4 pre-25 minutes. We have a 5th, a 6th even could spawn this game if it was taken basically instantly. Longxing finds 2 people.
Longxing may live to regret that decision. World Ender comes up, and he's going to get run down. Puts a lot of damage, though. Vulcan's in trouble. Forced to flash with his life. The fight's not over yet. Supreme Display of Talent's already been used. Huni's going to get dashed on. He gets slapped with a couple of shurikens. He escapes with his life, and Huni makes it out.
And it's just millimeters in the end that allows Huni to survive, but once again, Clutch trade up. However, RNG continue to try and fight for this vision behind numbers.
Always love a bit of champion excellence as Huni shows us on his role swap top lane Kiana. Cody-san walks down. Now he's actually going all in.
Okay, now remember, there's no ultimate for Xiaohu. Cody-san's just going to look to run him down with the Manamune, and the Rage Blade ends up flashing forward. Gets the Hourglass proc as well. Takes a big chunk of damage, but that's a solo kill to Cody-san.
And because Longxing doesn't have teleport, they don't feel like they can start up the Baron, so another pick over for Clutch Gaming. They are creating the chaos needed on the map to be able to gain these advantages and continue to drag the game out.
In case people at home are wondering how Cody-san has fallen into this massive hole in CS, he's being called off of a lot of side minion waves. But first, Huni on the Moby Boots Kiana, or the Kale, who was also taking a lot of CS, so kind of had to take the L for the team here because they haven't been ahead as RNG tunnel into Baron.
Yeah, they certainly do, and this is completely off vision. Only 2 members. It is going to also be an Ardent. This could be a Baron sneak.
Clutch have no idea.
No response whatsoever. Look at the minimap. This is just going to be easily secured. Every objective in the Dragon and Baron pit, RNG will be able to secure. W will connect from Cody-san, but it doesn't matter, and a fantastic map read from RNG.
Yeah, what a courageous play to just be able to start that one up. You know, Kiana has got an ultimate, has got teleport. If that is spotted, that is probably a 1 team fight right now for Clutch. However, now the fact they have it makes Clutch's job nearly impossible.
It's one of those things where there's almost no cost to going over the wall and starting it, and then you look at the champions that are visible from Clutch and see if there's any stutter stepping, any movements that pantomime that you know about the Baron being started. It wasn't his mid lane.
That's another engage. Caster's in trouble, and so far it's actually Huni that's blown up. Caster escapes with his life. Vulcan's running away. Uzi is looking to finish it off. He's got the second of the fight so far. Caster and Uzi are chasing. Demonte starting to step back. Cody-san gets tagged by a Mystic Shot. He's blown up. It's a double kill for Uzi. Now Lyra's running for his life. This, by the way, while Longxing is pushing in the top lane, Lyra goes down, and RNG are looking at the base.
And in a genuine 4v5, they run over the entirety of Clutch. This game was so close to parity, but once that Baron was obtained, RNG just hit the switch.
Uzi just follows his top laner who didn't want to group. Single player Aatrox is going to be able to break through the top side of the map. Game probably doesn't end here, but I feel like the straw that broke the camel's back was very visible.
15-second death timers for several members of Clutch. The inhibitor is being taken down. RNG, they're still stepping forward. Demonte is going to be able to clear this wave out as RNG back away. In the blink of an eye, 5,500 gold is the Baron power play. Thus far, the base is broken open, and you have to feel the spirit and the hope of Clutch as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you take a look at how this game has gone, it has been the annoying fly that is Clutch, trying to flitter around the whole map, trying to sting the monster that is RNG. But as soon as they got members on the same screen, we saw the strength of this lineup.
And it was honestly Huni trying to make something out of nothing. He saw the enemy team regrouping after Baron and said, hey, we trade evenly, we get Baron buffs off, and it's worth it. He often makes those calls himself, and on the Kiana, he has the toolset to do so, but his teammates have to pay the price as well, as it's open season on the members of Clutch. Speaking of, they're fighting again.
And we jump back into the action. Costa's already did this time. Remember, look at the damage! Launching and Shao Hu obliterate the North Americans. That's a triple kill already. And Langxing is tower diving. He picks up the ace. And that will be the game for RNG.
He just dunks him. Everyone trapped in that Cataclysm already. The summoner spells had been burnt, and RNG take over.
Uzi's Ezreal hidden passive, also so much damage out of the True Shot Barrage. The dive trio gets it done, and RNG take down Clutch in the 4th game of the day.
The game ended in such a different tone to the 25 minutes that preceded. RNG will eliminate Clutch to make them go 0-5. They're not done just yet. A couple extra kills before the Nexus falls, and Huni will be blown up. RNG set their sights on Fnatic.
And a little bit more of a methodical game out of RNG. Honestly, caught out inside lanes multiple times, but you could see they understood the strength of the composition. Once Uzi was ready to go, once they picked up that Baron buff, they sure ended very fast.
RNG games very often follow a formula, and it felt like that formula didn't apply to the early game that was very focused on Lyra and Huni combining their powers on Qiyana and Rek'Sai. It took time for them to really assimilate to this particular game's meta. The moment they got on top of that, like you say, Quick Shot. I got Deficio on the mind. Like you say, Quick Shot. They just fall it out from there, and honestly, by the end, a couple of strikes later, it was over.
Oh, the pain that you just reminded me of, Papa Smithy. The thing is, though, if you compared Clutch and Fnatic's games earlier to when they played one another to the most recent games they just played, you would not believe they were the same teams. Clutch, for 25 minutes, had a very real, very believable shot at being able to take down RNG, and 2 little skirmishes, 2 little picks changed the tone of the entire match.
But I really think it was the Baron, just because of the fact that those were what forced the skirmishes. They knew that as soon as the siege was coming, it was probably going to be where that helped. So when